Hello everybody, my name is Nootmad and welcome back to episode 7 of my ultimate Moze guide. So in the previous Moze guide episodes, we covered skill trees, we covered class mods, and today I'll be covering a few artifacts that play crucial parts in any of Moze's current builds. I'm going to be going over why they're good, what variants you should aim for, and what sort of builds they synergize well with. So, just before we start though, I do want to let you guys know that myself, Prismatic, and a few other experienced Moze players actually maintain a Google document with up-to-date and highly optimized Moze builds that you can actually find for yourself in the official Borderlands Discord. However, I'm also going to put the link for that document in the descriptions below, so just feel free to check that out if you're looking for a solid Moze build. These builds are always updated with every major patch and hotfix, so you can always know that the builds in that document are always up to date and you can use them reliably. But yeah, anyway, without any further delay, let's just jump straight into it. So, a good place to start would be with the good old Victory Rush Relic. What it does, gives you a movement speed and damage buff for 60 seconds after killing a badass type enemy. Now, the benefit of this relic is that it's a free multiplicative damage bonus and it's a suffix. By that, I mean that you can get prefixes like Atom Bomb, Icebreaker, and Snowdrift for damage or mobility bonuses, depending on what sort of build you're trying to run. Atom Bomb Victory Rush is actually the relic I'm using in the build that I'm showing you right now, that you can see in the gameplay in the background. And yeah, it's just a build I've been working for quite some time now, and it's coming close to being ready to show you guys, so stay tuned for that. And yeah, as you can see, the build is actually a low HP build, but it doesn't actually use a Deathless. So the relic that I'm using in this build is the Atom Bomb prefix, which increases the lethality and range of the radiation explosions, which increases the likelihood of the radiation procs spreading to enemies and increasing the chance of massive blood explosion chains, which basically result in instant death of large clusters of enemies. So, now you may be thinking now, after what I just said, I'm on 1 HP and not actually using a Deathless relic. Well, that's because I have 5 points in Thin Red Line. I put 3 in the skill tree just like that, and my Bloodletter class 1 is giving me 2 extra points. Now, my thinking as to why I'm using that and not a Deathless relic, it's simply because the Deathless offers no damage bonuses at all, just apart from an extra big shield. So from all my gameplay testing and all the time and hours I have on Moze, I found that the shield capacity doesn't really pose much benefit, especially when you have multiple forms of sustain like Russian Offensive and Vampire. Bigger shields is far from the optimal reason to use a Bloodletter in my opinion, and as you can see in my clip, shield sustain is far from an issue. I'm using an amp setup with this build, and I believe, in my opinion, that's what Bloodletter is most suited to, which is basically exploiting shield mechanics. And that's something I mentioned in my class mod breakdown video on my channel as well. So if you guys are interested in hearing more about that, just feel free to check that out. But yeah, ultimately, by using a Victory Rush relic instead of a Deathless, I'm increasing my damage by just giving myself an access to a multiplicative damage bonus. All Deathless provides is a larger shield, which doesn't really offer anything substantial in terms of damage output. Now, as far as the substats I would go with an Atom Bomb Victory Rush or a Victory Rush in general, I've always got to tell you guys to try and match them to what weapons you're currently using. So for example, I'm using a Radiation Plague Bearer, and for that I'll be using AoE damage, heavy damage, and mag size. However, for example, let's say you're using a My Super build, something you want to aim for is Manufacturer crit, mag size, and gun damage, and so on and so forth, or grenade damage as well. Basically, you just want to make sure that the substats are optimized for the exact relic that you're running and the build as well. So, moving on from the Victory Rush, we now get to the Deathless relic. And despite my opinion on it, it still has some uses. For example, getting a Bloodletter comp that has Thin Red Line is fairly RNG dependent, and people are more or less likely to have a a Deathless relic on hand as opposed to a Bloodletter class mod with specific skill rolls. And yeah, basically the Deathless relic will easily get you to the 1 HP and under 50% threshold, which makes you able to effectively use annoyance like the 150 radiation damage while under 50% health. And yeah, aside from easy access to 1 HP, however, I'll still always stand behind investing extra skill points with Thin Red Line for extra points in a class mod and equipping a better relic instead, like the Victory Rush. So yeah, at the end of the day, the Deathless relic does have its place, but overall I'd much rather use a different relic like the Victory Rush and just get extra points with Thin Red Line through a class mod. So, moving on from those 2 relics, we now get to the Ottos Idol. What the Ottos Idol does is just give you health regen back on kill. Well, not health regen, just health back on kill. So, now, in an endgame build, an Ottos Idol still has its place, but if your plan is to maximize your damage output, I would always recommend not using an Ottos Idol and instead using a different relic like a Pearl, like a Victory Rush, and so on and so forth. However, Despite saying that, an Ottos Idol does have its place in the sense that it works incredibly well with a mid-tier Bloodletter build, for example, or any build that requires additional sustain. Let's say for example you actually like the damage to kill enemies quickly, you're going to want something that can help you stay alive a bit longer, and so the Ottos Idol can do just that. Now, as far as prefixes go, once again, Snowdrift and Atom Bomb are always solid picks, with Icebreaker also being recommended should you be using cryo-based weapons. And once again, substats will once again be reflective of your current build and very dependent on the weapons that you're using. So basically try and farm for the substats that will make sense for your build. However, for Moze, and you'll hear this as a recurring theme in any of my builds, mag size is always a solid pick to have for any relic that you use. Now, we move on to the Launchpad relic, which is another relic that I would sometimes use and suggest for Moze builds. Now why? Because when you combine that with the cut post prefix, as you can see on the screen, it gives you unlimited ammo. When you slam, you launch rockets. These rockets are considered melee damage, and when they hit an enemy, the cut post effect procs and gives you ammo. So, just like that, you have infinite access to ammo. Now, you may be thinking, but I'm playing Moze. I don't need a relic that gives me ammo regen, right? And yes, in most situations, you would be correct. However, a few guns that are incredibly powerful, like the Sandhawk, are also incredibly ammo hungry, and as a result, not even a bottomless mags focused build can sustain its ammo consumption reliably. The answer to that would be a cut post Launchpad. Now, I wouldn't suggest a build that specifically focuses on that relic for most situations. However, I would highly suggest to keep one in your backpack and just whip it out whenever you're running low on ammo and don't have access to an ammo vendor. Missions such as the Guardian takedown and the Melee One takedown are great examples of why having a cut post Launchpad is incredibly useful, as ammo stations are few and far between, and being able to just get easy access to a ton of ammo very quickly is very, very useful. So, moving on from that, we now get to the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge. And now, ever since its release, this relic has wormed its way into almost every Moze build, and for good reason. The damage bonus from the Pearl is incredibly significant, and with a character like Moze that doesn't stop shooting in most situations, it's a match made in heaven. I would recommend this relic for almost every Moze build, provided you aren't running the consecutive hits annoyed. So, as I mentioned in my previous build videos, you ought to notice a trend. I don't always recommend using the consecutive hits annoyed and the Pearl at the same time. Instead, if you're using the consecutive hits annoyed, I would recommend using a Victory Rush relic instead, simply because you want to be factoring in as many different forms of damage as possible, and Victory Rush provides you with a multiplicative damage boost, as opposed to Pearl, which is just gun damage and grouped together, which makes it additive. So, that's the Pearl in a nutshell basically. It can roll very limited stats, and so I would straight up recommend health regen and mag size as I have on the one on screen. But yeah, there's not much to farm for, you only get it once during a quest, and it is a tedious farm. But yeah, mag size is the most ideal roll I would recommend for you guys, should you want to use a Pearl in any build. And now, last but not least, the Lunacy relic. Now, I didn't actually initially consider covering this relic, but I have seen a few people talk about this relic and actually use it in quite a few Moze builds, and in my opinion, I just want to point out it's not worth it at all, simply because boosting shields by a ridiculous amount really isn't that beneficial in my eyes, as it doesn't provide any form of damage boost in any regard. And not to mention the shield recharge delay this relic brings along hurts the viability of this relic and any build survivability as well. The last thing you want is a shield that takes ages to recharge, and when you have the Lunacy relic, that's exactly what it does, so it doesn't really synergize well with most playstyles. And finally, and this one's the kicker, it can only roll 2 substats, not 3 like every other relic. And also this relic can't even have mag size, which is arguably a compulsory role for any Moze player's artifacts. I would avoid using this relic completely, and if for some reason you want to increase your shield capacity through a relic, use the Deathless instead, as Deathless relics can not only have a beneficial prefix, like the Snowdrift or the Atom Bomb, but the Lunacy cannot have a third stat, which hurts the relic's availability in most builds. And so yeah, that wraps up my thoughts on a few relics. If you guys want me to discuss the rest of the relics in this game, just let me know in the comments below. However, before I end the video though, I just want to thank you guys so much for all your support. We have grown faster than I ever could have imagined as a community, and the overwhelming encouragement for you guys to keep making more videos just means so much to me. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys so much. But anyway, as always, thank you for watching. I hope you get a lot out of the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya!